in a small coastal village, there lived a kind but somewhat scatterbrained woodcarver named Old Man Carding. One sunny morning, he gathered his neighbors and proudly declared, "My friends, I have decided to solve our biggest problem. I will carve a magnificent boat, so we can all easily cross to the neighboring island." The villagers cheered, excited by the prospect of no longer having to swim or wait for rare fishing boats to make the crossing. With great enthusiasm, Carding selected the mightiest tree in the forest and began his work. The first day. After a day of hard work, his neighbor Pedro came to inspect the progress. Scratching his head, Pedro remarked, "Carding, are you sure that's a boat? The shape looks more like a giant rice mortar." Carding stepped back, squinted at his creation, and realized Pedro might be right. Not wanting to disappoint, he cheerfully said, "You know what? A rice mortar would actually be more useful for our village." And so, the would-be boat transformed into a massive wooden mortar for pounding rice. The first change. The next day, while Carding was smoothing out the mortar, his friend Nana passed by and burst out laughing. "My goodness, Carding! This is the biggest rice mortar I've ever seen. At this size, we could turn it into a sungka game board for the whole barangay." Carding rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "You're absolutely right, Nana. A sungka board would bring joy to our children." With renewed energy, he began carving the mortar into an enormous game board. The third change. As Carding put the finishing touches on the sungka board, a group of children gathered around. One brave boy spoke up. "Tito Carding, this wood is too hard for our fingers. Maybe you could make it into something more useful, like a giant cooking ladle?" Never one to resist a suggestion, Carding immediately agreed. What a brilliant idea. Our community kitchen does need a good ladle. The sungka board soon took the shape of an enormous wooden spoon. That evening, Carding's wife came to see what all the noise was about. She took one look at the massive ladle and sighed deeply. "Husband, this spoon is bigger than our cooking pot. At this point, you might as well carve it into a toothpick." Carding's eyes lit up. "Darling, that's the most practical idea yet." With a few final strokes of his knife, the once great boat project was reduced to a single ordinary toothpick. The revelation. The next morning, Carding called all his neighbors together. With great ceremony, he held up his final creation. "My dear friends, after much hard work and consideration, I present to you a toothpick. Now, we may not be able to sail to the next island, but at least we'll all have clean teeth." The villagers burst into laughter, not at Carding's failure, but at the joyful absurdity of the situation. The moral lesson. As the laughter died down, the village elder spoke wisely. Carding's journey teaches us three important truths. First, a kind heart matters more than perfect results. Second, when we try to please everyone, we often accomplish nothing. And third, he paused, smiling. Sometimes life gives us toothpicks when we wanted boats, and that's okay, because shared laughter is the real treasure. From that day on, the toothpick became a cherished village joke and reminder, not of failure, but of their shared humanity. And as for Carding, he did eventually build that boat, though he made sure to keep a toothpick handy, just in case anyone had suggestions. Life doesn't always go as planned. Sometimes your boat turns into a toothpick. But that's where the real magic happens. Dive into this hilarious and heartwarming tale of a man who tried to please everyone and ended up with the world's most famous toothpick. Laugh, reflect, and ask yourself, am I building boats or carving toothpicks? Read, share, and tag someone who needs this lesson with a smile.